What's going on with your head today?
What do you mean what's going on with my head today? Whoa.
I could
The
only see
camera.
like half of it. It's like you know when your mum and dad Skype you. Do I look okay? You
I
only
get
see the
half
top
a
of their head.
nostril.
Dude, you got a remote control for your
Closer.
camera?
I've got a remote control. This is a proper television camera
Honestly.
for a fucking podcast that you can't see me on.
You still look fucking ugly.
I know. Hey, can't putting lipstick in a pig. Right. Here's another brand new, not another whiskey podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the only podcast that brings you diamond banter, banging tunes, cracking jokes, and lifetime-changing prizes is not this one, but thanks for tuning in. This is another episode of Not Another Whiskey Podcast with myself, Nicholas Polacki, and the wonder of nature that is the friend that no one asks for, Mr. Mitch Bouchard, chatting about all things whiskey, what's been happening in our world, and of course, bringing you up to speed with the news of the whiskey world in which we all live. Mitch, how the hell are you?
Good, man. Nice intro. I think your name cut out a little bit when you said your name there. So for everyone listening, it's Nicholas Polacki.
Oh.
No, because you've done it 5 times already, mate. So you're obviously struggling.
I keep forgetting my name. That's the problem.
No, I'm good, man. It's been a while since we recorded one of these together, right? It seems like we've just had sort of guests on the whole time, and we haven't done one with just the two of us. Oh, no. Wait a minute. Cue that Stevie Wonder song. You going to sing it?
It's not Stevie Wonder.
Is it not?
No, I think it's Bill Withers.
Just the two of us. Is that Bill Withers?
Try. Yeah, it is.
There you go.
How do you turn a duck into a 1960s soul singer? Put it in the oven till it's Bill Withers. Fucking terrible joke. I apologize.
What was Stevie Wonder's first hit?
Don't know.
A lamppost.
Oh, I think we'll be editing that right out.
Anyway, we digress here, man. So it seems like we haven't done. It seems like we've just had guests on. We haven't had just some banter for a long time ago. I think the last time we recorded one with just the two of us was about a month ago. So what we thought we'd do for this one is just have some chat. There's a lot of whiskey news to catch up on, so we're gonna be getting on with that first off. But dude, what have you been up to in the last month? What's been happening?
I have been traveling around, so I've kind of been all over the United States. I'm actually heading out tomorrow to go to Las Vegas to go and drink some whiskey in Las Vegas with the wonderful team down there, selling some Shibui and talking about some fun stuff, which is pretty cool because we just got a shout out in Las Vegas magazine for an amazing cocktail at Nobu Las Vegas, where they use Shibui pure malt for an old fashioned, and they sell more of it there than they sell of the margarita. So to outsell a margarita in Las Vegas takes some doing, but the wonderful guys at Nobu absolutely kill it. So yeah, excited to go and see them.
It seems like you're always going to Vegas, mate. Is that just your only market that you visit?
Yeah, our brand is in 32 markets and I only visit Vegas.
Can we go when the Formula One's on in November? Can I come over and we can
so.
Do like a little visit then?
Fingers crossed. Yeah, we're looking forward to being a sponsor. Probably not. Not this year. Maybe next. What about yourself, man? What's going on?
Oh, mate, it's been crazy. I mean, I've hosted 2 massive groups from America. One of them was like 20 odd guys. So shout out to the guys from Williams and Graham's over in Denver. I had all those guys over. Sean Kenyon and all his group. That was a lot of fun. We ran about Skye, Fort William, Speyside, Edinburgh, Glasgow. It was nuts, man. Just really good guys, really good time. And then I had some guys over from California and Arizona as well. So that was a lot of fun. And then after that, I literally just went, right, I need to go away. So just back from holiday, mate, Tenerife for a week, which I was sending you some pictures of and you were telling me to fuck off. So that was kind of fun, just literally lying by the pool, scratching myself. And that was it, getting sunburnt. As we say in Scotland, turning ourselves from blue to white, you know how it is when you live over here. Right, let's get everyone updated with some news, because I think there's been a load in the last sort of month or so that we haven't chatted about. But first thing, I think we need to pour ourselves a dram, mate. So
Absolutely.
my good friends at the Port of Leith Distillery sent me their new whiskey, which is Perpetuity, which I think we talked about in the last time that we chatted here. So I've actually got a little miniature bottle of this, and this is their blended whiskey that's just come out. Really cool wine bottle it comes in. You know, this is like a sort of prelude, I suppose, to them opening their distillery. But so clean, man. It's so fresh on the nose, 45.7% ABV. You've got a mixture of grain and single malts in there. But very, very easy drinking. I highly recommend this. I cannot remember the price point of it. I want to say it's about £60, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, Perpetuity, man, with Port Leith Distillery. So excited to see them opening up soon as well. It's going to be really good with Mr. Ian Sterling. So yeah, that's what I'm drinking, mate. What did you? I saw you pour a sneaky little bottle there of something.
I did. I pulled an old bottle off the shelf today. So I have a 25-year-old Highland Park, but it's one of the old bottles, probably going back to I want to say maybe into the 1990s. It's the black label with the sunset of the distillery, like in the image of the bottle, bottled at 50.7 ABV. So it was a higher strength 25-year-old, and it's just a killer dram. It's one of my all-time favorites. And the reason I poured it is because when we get into the news later, we will be talking about some of the older Highland Parks. In fact, the oldest Highland Park. But before we get there, Mitch, I kind of have a bone to pick with someone. And I'd love to do it. Yeah. So, and it's a warning to us both, where we get these, occasionally people will reach out to us on social media and try and engage with us and looking for a shout out or just chatting away. And, the good nature that we are, Mitch, we want to always kind of call out these people and celebrate the champions of our industry, whether they're in the bottling lines, whether they're in the distillation side of stuff or the whiskey making side of stuff, or right through to the packaging side of stuff. And this, my friend, is where no good deed goes unpunished. So I'm going to call him out again, the wonderful Mr. Lauren Smith, who'd reached out to me. And I kind of gave him a shout out, but because of my chicken scratch handwriting, I misread my own notes of the company he works with, which is Elanders. But I said Flanders instead of Elanders because of my crappy handwriting. And because I called it Flanders, all the guys at the factory have been teasing poor Lawrence and calling him Homer Simpson moving forward. So, that's it. So it's now a new segment of our show, which is going to be, what is Lauren Smith's new nickname going to be? So I thought that'd be a fun game for everybody out there to send us a note on Instagram, send us a note on LinkedIn.
Poor guy, man. I don't understand why he's not getting called Ned, though. Surely it'd be Ned Flanders instead of
Homer.
Well,
you think, but no, I think they were just going for something to relate to The Simpsons. And speaking of Simpsons...
But yeah, no, this is kind of cool news, especially for me living in Speyside. The fact that we have a new maltings from Simpsons Maltings, so a nice little transfer there. So yeah, I mean, this maltings is going to be opening up in Speyside, which kind of makes sense, right? I mean, so they're talking about a state-of-the-art maltings and barley storage facility, and it's going to be in Forres. So this is basically, sorry, it's going to be in Rothes, not Forres. This is pending approval from Murray Council right now. But, talking about Simpsons Malt, they have their headquarter all the way down in Berwick upon Tweed, and I see their lorries flying about Speyside all the time. So for them to have one of their operations up here, this would be their fourth maltings, I think it is. They're going to produce 85,000 tons up here, and predominantly from barley from the Speyside region. So kind of makes sense, considering this is our most prevalent whiskey making region. Why not have a maltings up here?
Yeah, so that's exciting news, actually, and good to see that coming back onto play, and the investment into, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know, right? We know nothing happens quickly in the Scotch whiskey world. But putting a maltings right into the heart of Speyside shows the investment level that we're looking at for growth in the category, which is really great news. So, well, as I said before, Highland Park is the dram I am drinking, and I'm only drinking the 25-year-old. But they have just released the news that they are releasing a 54-year-old Highland Park. It is the oldest Highland Park that they've ever released in 225 years of their history, which is pretty cool stuff. Gordon Motion, who's the head whiskey maker right across all of Edrington Group, has got his fingerprints all over this one. It's 10 refill casks that were laid down 40 years ago, all the way back in 1968. Beautifully light in color originally, and then he tipped those casks into first fill sherry casks in order to produce just, this wonderful character and flavor. Only 225 bottles have been released. And are you ready for this, Mitch? Do you want to guess at what the price point will be?
No, because I know.
Oh, fuck. All right. £39,000. So it's a 700ml bottle, 46.9% ABV, and £39,000. So about $47,000 US for our US listeners who are now tuning in.
Packaging is beautiful, though. If you guys haven't seen the packaging yet, Google this. I mean, that wooden box that it comes in, and then the is there any information about the packaging, Nicholas?
It's incredible. It's an absolute piece of art. Yeah, I'm sure there is, but I've just not read it. I mean, I'm sure someone, like, honestly, even in their own website, it doesn't actually say an awful lot about the pack around it. But the packaging is stunning. It looks like, it's almost like that kind of live edge wood that they used to create this. It's a piece of art. It really is. And as you would expect for £40,000. So
beautiful. Well, Highland Park, we look forward to our little sample of that. Yeah, so one of the things that caught my bloodshot hungover whiskey eyes was the £3 million renovation that's been done at the Scotch Whisky Experience. Now, Nicholas, I don't know if did you ever do that when you were in Edinburgh at all? It's like right at the top of the Royal Mile. They used to have this kind of really funky barrel ride. It was kind of like a little bit Disney-like.
And there's a ghost.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a ghost. So anyway, that's good and bad news, because I thought it was quite quirky, but that's all been scrapped, and they're literally, the workers are in right now. They're renovating it all. I think it's going to be ready by the summer. So I actually popped in there and met up with their marketing director, Julie Trevisan Hunter, who told me about the plans for this iconic place in the centre of Edinburgh that's been there for around about 30 years now. So this is what Julie said about what's going on there. So we're sitting here in the Scotch Whisky Experience. Julie, thank you very much for your time and coming on the show to chat to us a little bit about what you guys are doing here.
Absolutely delighted. Yeah, it's an exciting time. I feel like every time I speak to somebody, I say it's an exciting time because there's always something happening, but this is particularly big just now for us this year.
Brilliant. So tell us a little bit what you can about the plans for this place moving into the summer of 2023.
Yeah, I know. How did that happen? Right, so it's been a funny old few years for anyone that works, for everybody, obviously, but particularly for the folk that work in the tourism industry here in Scotland. So we had been planning pre-COVID a replacement of our beloved old barrel ride, which had done its service and a little bit more and was mechanically very much at the end of its life. So we coaxed it.
Did you not say you were pushing it around at one point?
A little bit. That's a wee bit of an exaggeration. But no, our technical team were really, really coaxing the last couple of years of life out of it over the last couple of years that we've had it going. Yeah. So having a barrel ride of some description has been something that we've had since the day that we opened in May 1988. So originally up on the first floor of the building, where it told the history of Scotch whisky, and then more recently, over the last sort of almost 15 years, down on the ground floor, where we used it to take people through the production of single malt Scotch whisky. It was that critical first step in the story of Scotch whisky. So we're replacing that. So we've taken out our barrel ride. We're carrying on with all the rest of our tour, doing a few extra drams with people and telling them about how whisky's made in a slightly different way at the moment. But in June, we are going to be launching something entirely new in terms of a new part of the tour experience, which will still focus on production, single malt Scotch whisky production. The origins of whisky, the landscape, where the ingredients come from, what makes it utterly unique to Scotland, and then that lovely journey through how the grain turns into the spirit. So we've got a completely new way of doing it. It's not another barrel car ride. It will not be that, which I've heard lots of sadness about. So To be honest, that barrel ride was absolutely loved by our visitor market. And here, our job is to tell the story of Scotch whisky to holidaymakers to Edinburgh, and in the main that's often international holidaymakers. So a great market from England, but a huge market from Europe, from North America, and pre-COVID from Asia as well, and particularly China, and having that really different way of telling the story of Scotch when they were here in the capital really resonated with them. So we're sticking with having something very different. I'm obviously not going to reveal all the details behind it, but it will be it'll be really experiential. It'll have lots of wonderful media associated to it, and it will hopefully be able to tell the story of how whiskey is made in quite a different way. So what we always say is we're not a distillery, so you're not going to kind of walk in and feel the heat of the pot stills and get the smells from the washbacks and get all of that. That's not what we are. So we're not going to try and emulate that. But what we are going to say is if we're not doing that, how can we kind of delve into actually what's happening inside and really help people understand what can sometimes be seen as quite a scientific process. And if you don't have a particularly scientific mind or that depth of fascination about the nuts and bolts of exactly how it's made, how can we really bring that to life and make that process seem really simple and really clear to people in terms of how single malt is made in a way that's quite magical and makes you leave that part wanting to find out about the next, and ultimately makes you walk out of our doors here on Castle Hill on the Royal Mile desperate to then travel further afield in Scotland and discover more of the distilleries.
That's fantastic. I mean, I've always loved the fact that you guys are so central in Edinburgh as well. Over the years, how have you seen the sort of customer that comes in here change? Has there been, I mean, I'm assuming there's a much younger customer coming in that you're seeing with regards to whiskey sort of interest?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our demographic, when you kind of look through our visitor survey and we ask people, where are you from? Who are you here with? What age are you? What language do you speak? It's so mixed. It's so incredibly mixed. And I think people might guess that here in the UK particularly, if you said to people who would go into a whisky attraction, you'd be like, oh well, probably folk that have made that journey in their life of finally deciding that they enjoy Scotch whisky. Not at all. The vast majority of our visitors, in fact our biggest audience group, are people kind of from mid-20s to mid-30s. And interested in approaching Scotch whisky in all different ways, mostly because people are coming internationally. They'll see how whiskey is consumed at home, which might be quite different. It might be quite modern, it might be cocktails. But often when they come here, they're like, we want the really traditional way of doing it. So there's that lovely balance of whiskey being displayed and consumed in every possible way, and we're always really up for saying to people there's no rule about how you drink whiskey. It's your palate. What could be more personal than that? You drink it the way you love it. But often people say, we see this whiskey at home. What can we see here that we won't see at home, or how can we try it in a way, or like how do people in Scotland really, really drink it? How were they drinking it hundreds of years ago? And my favourite thing is to tell them about whiskey liqueurs, which is probably one of the first ways that people were drinking whiskey, when the spirit itself was a little bit rough many centuries ago. So that whole kind of mixing things up and making whiskey a little bit sweeter and more accessible to many people's palates is not a new thing at all, So if you're not sure that a straight whiskey is the right thing for you, it's not something new to try it mixed with lots of different things, either as a cocktail or as a liqueur. In fact, that's probably one of the most original ways of doing it.
And the cool thing is you guys have got the bars and the restaurant here as well to do all that.
Yeah.
We were just in that amazing collection that you guys have. Can you tell everyone a little bit about that?
Yes, so we love our collection, except when we have to dust it. No, even then, that's an utter privilege, because you're carefully with your white gloves taking those bottles off the shelves and getting to know each and every one of them, and they're utterly fascinating. There are 3,384 different individual and unique bottles of Scotch whisky that were purchased over about 35 years by Brazilian whisky collector Clive Vidas, who got this passion for Scotch whisky following the visit of a Scottish business associate who came to visit him, knew his absolute love for Scotch whisky. But, you know, back in the 1960s and 70s in Brazil, there was a handful of blends available and that was it. And he came over and said, right, you have this reputation for, you know, everybody has to bring the bottle from the duty free for you, but I've brought you something special. Here are 6 single malts. And Clive literally, although he was a huge whisky fan, said to him, I have no idea what you're talking about. What are single malts? And that, well, you see how, you know, your question before about how quickly things have changed, you know, to have gone in like 30 or 40 years for somebody that was a huge whisky fan not knowing what a single malt was, to where people are now. He decided, because these whiskies just seemed too special and looked too beautiful, and the little part of Scotland that came from each of them, because he, you know, his friend had brought these whiskies from all different parts of Scotland, and he couldn't bring himself to open them. And those 6 bottles were the thing that started his passion for then collecting Scotch whisky and putting that collection together.
No, it's amazing to see it. I mean, I think for anyone listening that hasn't been to Edinburgh, this is definitely a must stop. And the shop's stunning as well. I spent a lot of time just kind of browsing your shop down there. You've got some fantastic single malts. So can you just tell our listeners where they can find out about, you know, social media, website, all that kind of good stuff, how they book to come here?
Absolutely. So, well, one thing to mention is that people can obviously come and book on any of our tour experiences, but we also have our fabulous Amber restaurant and whiskey bar, which has been open for 21 years now, and I almost paused before I said that because I thought that can't be right, but it is. It's last year we had our 21st birthday, which is a long time for a restaurant in Edinburgh, and people can come down and they can just book the restaurant for lunch, for dinner, come to our tasting bar and, you know, have a whiskey flight or just try a few drams, and that's a lovely thing for people to do if they already know about whiskey, already into whiskey, and, you know, they've done a lot of things. So Amber has its own channels on social media. So we have across the company, obviously, a presence on Facebook, on Instagram, a little bit on Twitter, and LinkedIn, which is huge for us as well.
Okay.
in the business world. And then, of course, our core website, that is the avenue for people to be able to book everything. So all of our experiences and Amber Restaurant and everything is all fully bookable online. So the whole allocation of everything that's available. So it's the best sort of point of contact to be able to see exactly, you know, when we're open seasonally, because we open sort of longer hours in high season than quiet days. The only day we're closed is Christmas Day, so we all have that.
Let's take Christmas
one day
off. Come on, what?
We all have one day off.
Beautiful. Well, Gilly, thanks so much for all the information. Thank you for being on the show, and I look forward to coming back in the summer and seeing the new experience here.
Can't wait to host you.
Mitch, that was really cool to hear about the plans for the Scotch whisky experience. So in other news, Jack Daniels has found itself in a row over the fungus that grows around the distillery. So a couple of residents who have taken umbrage at the fact that their houses, their children's toys are starting to grow the fungus from the spores on the air that are left around distilleries. Now, for those of you who have ever been to a distillery anywhere in the world, you will know that the trees and the things that surround the distillery often have a kind of black tinge to them. And that is this, you know, fairly harmless, by all accounts, fungus that grows by eating on the spores of the angel share. And Jack Daniels have had to scrap an entire multi-million-dollar expansion plan based on this, which is really interesting because for me, it's not just about Jack Daniels, but what are the ramifications for that right across the whiskey world? Now, to be fair, the United States is fairly litigious at the best of times. They'll find any reason to take you to court or find a way to complain about something. And I just think it's really interesting that this has happened now because it's not new and it's certainly not something that that you know, people who've lived around distilleries haven't become familiar with. But really interesting to see that actually it had such an effect that it created the moment where Brown-Forman had to just pull the plug on it all and just, you know, cancel the expansion.
I remember there was an issue with Diageo, I think it was, in the sort of central belt, with people complaining about this. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there for sure. So on to other news. Our good friends at Loch Lomond Group have launched a new blended whiskey called Noble Rebel. I really like the look of this. And what they say about this is It's an innovation and bold new blended malt Scotch whiskey brand that creatively pushes boundaries in the pursuit of flavor creation, combining the nobility of single malt whiskey with the rigor of craftsmanship.
Easy for you to say.
I know, right? I've fucked that right up. It teaches me to read out a quote.
Spoke you to England.
Yeah, sorry, Loch Lomond. I'll apologize in advance for that. But Michael Henry is their master blender. He's had over 30 years experience, so he's produced 3 different expressions. And I haven't tried this yet, but really interesting to see that it's going to retail. All 3 of these are going to retail for £40. So the first one is going to be Smoke Symphony. Symphony. So, thank you. The second one is going to be Orchard Outburst, and the third one is going to be Hazelnut Harmony. They just roll off the tongue, don't they? how are you gonna say all this like when you're in a bar? I can't even say it after not drinking. You know what I mean? But I like this. I don't know if you've seen the packaging and everything, but it's really fresh. It reminds me. There's a little bit of Hendrix in there. There's a little bit of Glenmorangie with regards to the marketing. And then you've got that touch of the kind of playfulness, I suppose, when you talk about a blended malt. We got Monkey Shoulder that really pushed the boundaries out in the early sort of 2000s. So it's cool to see it. I like that we've still got whiskies out there that are pushing the boundaries, making people think about drinking whiskey in another way. Good for you, Loch Lomond, doing some great stuff right now. So Nick Bradley, I know you listen, who is the brand manager for Glen Scotia. Send me some of this new shit, Nick. I'll be, you got my number, you got my address. Let's get this going. Get it over to the US to Nicholas as well.
Other news, Edrington Group are at it again with an investment into a sherry maker called Grupo Estevez based in Jerez. So in order for them to really lock down the provenance of their sherry casks, they've just bought a sherry company, which is very, very clever because I know that they're really heavily invested with Tavasa, the cooperage out in Jerez. I don't know if it will change anything there, but this allows them to control the wine that's been used to season their sherry barrels, which is a really interesting and exciting way to look at, like I said, the provenance of how you've made your whiskey. When you can trace back the wines that were used to season the barrels and the direct link for where the wood's coming from, I think that's a really interesting and exciting thing to see. And so I, when I was reading through this, I was like, wow, they've taken 50% of Estevez. And that also includes Emilio Estevez, so royalties on all of his movies for the next 25 years, which is interesting. But across the board, Scott McCroskey, the CEO of Edrington, saying that the Estevez family are a perfect partner for Macallan Jerez, owning some of the finest sherries and vermouths in the world and custodians of such historic vineyards and bodegas. So really exciting to see. And yeah, I wonder if more distilleries shall follow suit.
Well, I think it's interesting because we always have this conversation, right? That Scotch whiskey is really propping up the sherry industry. And apologies to anyone who's listening that's a big sherry fan. But it's, you've been over to Jerez before. You see all these casks marked up to go to Scotch whiskey brands. You ask them what they are doing with their sherries. Predominantly, it's either being, chucked down the drain, turned into sherry vinegar. If you go back to the Charlie episode that we did just before Christmas, we talk about that a lot with sherry in there. And I think this is a classic example. Macallan buying 50% of this group. That's huge, just to ensure that they can get their casks. It's absolutely crazy. So this is a bit of news that's a little bit old now. This broke the end of February, but like we said, we haven't done an episode like this for a while. But we always like to talk about new distilleries in Scotland opening up. And I remember going up to Inverness last summer and seeing this new distillery being built literally on the banks of the River Ness. And I'm going to completely botch up how you pronounce this one. I think it's Ullabeast, which is Gaelic for monster. And this is literally right in the heart of the city of Inverness. It's a really cool distillery as well. Glass front windows with the stills looking onto the river. It's they said the cost for this is 7.5 million. And it's the first distillery to open its doors in Inverness since 1892, which is cool to see. And again, another one of these small craft distilleries opening up in Scotland. So guys, congratulations. I look forward to visiting next time I'm in Inverness, and really cool to see.
So the last piece of news that we have for you is quite political, but basically Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has defended plans that the increase on duty on Scotch whisky by 10.1%, despite the industry concerns. This is huge. And it's huge in a time where the entire beverage industry is reeling from the effects of COVID-19 right across the world. This will have massive implications for small distilleries, large distilleries, and anybody else looking to sell a bottle of whiskey, which means that for £15.42, the average price of a bottle of whiskey in Scotland, £11.40 of a £15.42 bottle would go directly to the Treasury in taxation through duty and VAT. That is bonkers. So, as they say, Jeremy Hunt, unfortunately, your name is going to take a pounding here, quite literally. If you're an empire, you have an emperor. If you're a kingdom, you have a king. So it's no mistake that because we're a country, we've got Jeremy Hunt.
Nice little subtle way of putting that there. But I think this is annoying because the UK government made a comment back in 2019, and they said they were going to ensure the tax system is supporting Scotch whisky. This doesn't support Scotch whiskies, and rightly so. All the distilleries have been up in arms about this, and it's just, again, something else. We talked about how Scotch whisky is so big around the world now, and it's easily the biggest export in Scotland, and something like this happens. It's just very, very frustrating. And we're going to get serious in one of the episodes very shortly. We are right now kind of looking into this, and we're doing a lot of research on it. We've got this whole DRS scheme, which is a bottle return scheme that's happening in Scotland, and that's getting pushed through in August. As we record this, we're in March right now, so we don't know how that's going to play out. And I was over in Skye recently, and I met a brewer over there, the Cullen Brewery, a great guy called Stuart, and he was talking about this DRS scheme could basically put him out of business. That's how bad it is for small producers in Scotland. And also, not just that, it could also really stop a lot of producers selling in Scotland, full stop. But this is a whole sort of rabbit hole that we're going to get down into one of the episodes, and we're going to combine this with the other rabbit hole. That's the whole marketing restrictions that are planning to get put onto to alcohol here in Scotland, which again is something else that could really be detrimental for the industry as a whole. We're working out. We need some people to jump on as well and put their kind of 2 bits worth in. I've been texting a few people. Everyone's been pretty quiet on whether they want to jump in on this. So if you're listening right now, and maybe you're someone who produces a small amount of whiskey or beer, and you want to jump in with either the DRS aspect of it or these alcohol marketing plans that are being put in place, we'd love to have you on the show. Give us a shout on Instagram or pop us an email. You've got all our details on our website, or whenever you listen to the show, you'll find it here. Speaking about small distillers, I just cracked my second dram, Nicholas.
Yep, what are you drinking?
Second dram of the show. So again, our friends over at the Glasgow Distillery sent me a wee dram of their latest release, which is red wine and ruby port finish. Now, this gets pretty complicated because Glasgow Distillery do a lot of different new make spirit. They do unpeated, they do peated, they do double distilled and triple distilled. So this one has been triple distilled and is peated. And it's really interesting. I mean, the color on it is just, I don't know if you can see that right now, but really, really dark. You're getting that obviously from the ruby port casks. You're getting that peat coming through, definitely, but it's not overwhelming. It's just a nice sort of bonfire, citrusy, 57.5. I need to spend a little bit more time with this. I think it needs a little bit of water, but it's still, very drinkable neat, which is a bit dangerous.
Very nice.
So guys at the Glasgow Distillery, thank you very much for that. I do have a little cask with them as well, which I need to check out and see how that's going on. Wonderful.
Lucky you. I can't wait for my 50% sharing when you crack those bottles, right? That's the deal. You know what? I love that idea of the triple distillation as well. You're going to have a nice light floral citrusy style spirit, but with the hints of smoke in the back end. That'll be nice.
That is so smooth. That is incredibly smooth. So I think I need to
even at that
look
ABV.
Yeah, at 57. Like I say, this has
Wow.
literally just come out. So guys, thank you very much for sending that beautiful dram. As always, they always do a good job. The Glasgow
Yeah,
Distillery.
they really do.
I still
Wonderful.
haven't had a bad dram from them, and I think they're in the US now, Nicholas.
They are indeed. In fact, our partner in Asia is also their importer for all of Asia. They're doing some really great stuff. Their whiskies are wonderful. They're very thoughtful about what they're putting out into the market. They're not just flooding the zone, which is really great. And yeah, their whiskies are in the US as well. Really nice.
Yeah. I think we're gonna get Liam on the show shortly. Actually, he's a bit of a crazy boy, so that'll be good.
Well, Mitch, that was an absolute brilliant top to top. It was great to share a dram with you, catch up on your vacation. Yet another vacation. You lazy. You're beautifully
wait till you get the slideshow.
I'll say this: what a color you've got on you. Honestly, those teeth. Have you had them whitened, or are they just popping because of the color of your tan?
It's the color, mate. Like I said, I've actually turned from blue to semi-brown now. You know.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah.
You're no longer haunting Speyside.
No, that was good, mate. That's good. No, it was good to catch up as well. And interesting news. I think what we've been doing recently, we've just been going really hard with guests and getting these out and making sure that we're producing an episode every week. But it's good to sit down and just have these kind of chats and do these ones where it's just you and I shooting the shit, talking about what's going on.
On the last thing that you talked about with the political aspect of what's going on in our industry, this is a true story, and you know this. We reached out to Nicola Sturgeon and asked her to come on the show, spoke directly to people in the top of our food chain. And 2 days later, she resigned. So what does that tell you about the power that we wield here and Not Another Whiskey podcast? The sheer thought of being questioned by Mitch Bouchard and Nicholas Polacki made the First Minister go, fuck it. I don't want to take this one in the chin.
she crumbled, mate. She crumbled. Well, anyway, on that bombshell, guys, thank you so much for listening. Tune in for the next episode where we're going to have Tommy from Flatiron Room and Fine and Rare talking about his new whiskey coffee on the podcast. So that's an interesting one.
Cool. Cheers, Mitch.
Cheers, guys. Take it easy. Bye.